Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down and analyze the meta, what's happening over in Japan, and how it will impact Ireland. We're going to break down the Champions League that happened this past weekend over in Japan, and honestly, it is quite a shocking result, which really going into our Twilight Masquerade set, where Miraidon surprised everyone and managed to win, which to me is a huge, big ripple effect, which actually does make a lot of sense about why Miraidon won, and we're going to talk about exactly why that happened. Talk about this new reign of Dragapult, how powerful it's really becoming in the City League, and how that really translates into the Champions League. Plus, some of the brand new cards as well. Some of them I'm a huge fan of, which we're going to break down right now. So we got the Loyal Tree and Pink Urchin got revealed as EX Pokemon, all Darkness types. And for those who don't know, probably know for the channel, I have a huge history of loving Dark type Pokemon. All of them I can see doing pretty well. So Pink Urchin EX has a really interesting ability, which pretty much guarantees you get to switch one of your bench Pokemon with a new to become your new active Pokemon, except Pincurchin EX. But there is a limitation to this one. The new active Pokemon is now poisoned. But it kind of works in a way because a lot of this stuff, these Pokemon deal with being poisoned. And they attack for 2 Darkness Energy, 60 times the amount of prize card your opponent's taken. Now you are capping out at 250 damage for 2 Darkness Energy if your opponent has taken 5. That is still pretty good for two prize Pokemon for 2 energies. Yes, you can team this up a little bit more with a new Stadium card and Sneasler, plus even a Brute Bonnet to poison your opponent's active Pokemon to deal additional 50 more damage. So again, that's still pretty good. So doing 300 damage for 2 is not too bad, but there are a few more better things for this one. Serendipity EX is a big return to like the Oricorio EX, which once you return, if any of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you may draw 3 cards, but you can't take this ability more than once per turn. Again, this is pretty good. Guaranteed 3 extra draw cards as soon as one of your opponents taken out is pretty powerful as well. The attack does 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for 3 energies, not exactly too strong, but the ability is definitely really good, especially in the star box. Okie Dokie is honestly one of the best cards right now from this set, which I think could be really strong in teamed up with Pincurchin. Its first attack guaranteed you get to energy extract 2 basic energy Dark Energies from your deck and put them onto this Pokemon. So you already have a guaranteed energy acceleration. But this is why I think this is really powerful. 2 Darkness Energy and the colors 130 damage. If this Pokemon is poisoned, do 130 more damage. Like I mentioned before, that Pincurchin, that switching effect, well, you just switch into this and Pincurchin from Okie Dokie from the bench into the active spot, doing 260 damage potentially as early as turn 1. If you think about it, we had Dark Patch in this deck, so you can energy accelerate very easily. You have so many ways to get energies in discard pile, and pretty much you can even run the Brute Bonnet with a brand new tool card. So if this active Pokemon is poisoned, you do 14 more damage. Plus also the Resident Sneasler and even the new Stadium card, you effectively can do nearly 330 damage for 3 energies if this Pokemon is poisoned and your opponent's one as well. It is a very monstrous, very powerful attacking option. Also, 300 damage for 3 energies is very good, especially when you have 250 HP. I think this in Pincurchin EX is a very good inclusion. Serendipity is really good for that little bit of a draw factor, so there is a lot of things going for this archetype. Munkidori for is an EX, and honestly, if this Pokemon is knocked out from an attack of your opponent's active Pokemon, if you have a Pincurchin EX in play, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize card. That's not too bad. Heck, you can even chuck a Legacy Energy on it, and your opponent basically takes a knockout, but they can't take any prize cards. But the attack does 190 damage, and during this turn, your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. It's okay, but I think the Okie Dokie is definitely the best attacking option in this archetype, and Serendipity is really good support with Pincurchin offers that really good switching out, plus also helps you in control. Guaranteeing a switch card effect is really good. So those are the EX cards, and there are a few other good cards as well. I'm a big fan, I'm really excited, and already trying to think about how these archetypes can work. And we have a brand new A-Spec, a neutral center, which prevents all damage done to this Pokemon, done to Pokemon that don't have a rule box for your opponent's active Pokemon EX or V, basically having sort of a guaranteed effect like protection from EX and V Pokemon. Now there is a little bit of a limitation of this one. There is still Lost Vacuum in this format. We aren't exactly in a heavy stadium format, but it potentially, if this is going to be played a lot more control, we're going to see a lot more outs for stadium cards. So this is definitely not exactly as powerful as people think. Yes, you can have Roseanne to reuse your I believe that can reuse stadiums or any ways to try and recycle your stadium cards, but I would say it's kind of okay overall. This is a Binding Mochi, which is kind of what I talked about. If this is attached to a Pokemon which is poison, do 40 more damage. So like I said, Okie Dokie can do 300 damage for 3 energies is very, very powerful. And also you could do Alicia War as well. So I think it's a very, very good inclusion in these okie dokie sort of decks. Kiram is basically here to say goodbye and Lost Box. Definitely 2 years a bit too late. Anti-Plasma makes if any of your opponent has any cards in their discard pile of Chorus in its name, this does Pokemon's Triforce does attack with 1 colorless energy. And what does it do? For 2 water, 2 metal, and a colorless, pretty much discard all energy attached to this Pokemon and do 110 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon. Yep, that basically takes away those of their Comfeys, that KOs their Cramorants, that KOs so many things against Lost Box. Yes, this is a little bit too late because honestly, Lost Box has definitely lost its way a tiny bit. And I would say this actually could even be good in Shin Power a little bit, but it does require 2 actual manual attachments, and that's one of the bad things about this in Kiram. I think it could be a little bit too late. I think people will be threatening, especially the Lost Box. They will be playing more mana fees because yes, they're always scared of Greninja, but they'll be scared of this Kiram a lot more because they can just tech this in any deck. For example, remember how powerful Drapion was? That was in nearly every other deck which had a really scary Mew matchup. They would just chuck this on there and just have the guarantee to KO against some Drapion against any Mews. So this Kiram could see some play, but honestly, it's kind of all right so far. And Chorus's tendency is to search check for a stadium card and an energy card, reveal them, and put it into your hand. So it's another new Chorus card. So effectively, there's 2 different Choruses that could in fact be used to guarantee to trigger this Kiram Trifox ability. So these are some very interesting cards. These will probably be out in our August set, but probably before after Worlds. So we're not going to have it legal for Worlds. But honestly, I'm a big fan. I'm really quite excited to see how these archetypes will work. So let's now look at the City League going in towards the Champions League and how the meta really was shaping up. And we can see here that Dragapult was doing incredibly well. 30%. We haven't seen that since the very early Charizard days. Yes, I know that was literally the start of January time, but that's starting to really give your mind ahead about it, how powerful Dragapult really is. It's making so many Pokemon switch from having the optimal 60 HP basics to kind of going back to the 70 HP one, just to guarantee some extra HP. We can see that's been the effect. Charizard has dropped to 5.3. Heck, even Shein Power is a 3.8 dex. You fast forward before this set was released, these were easily arguably a 25%, even 10% meta sort of tile decks. We see right now in Indianapolis, Charizard is a 25% day 1, Shin Power is 11. Thinking about how little of a drop-off they have become, that shows how powerful Dragapult really has become. Lugia also is 17.5%, doing very well because Legacy NFT is honestly very, very powerful for the archetype. It guarantees that also you can have the likes of the Wellspring Ogopon. You can have the likes of the Iron Hands EX to try and like guarantee some extra prize cards as well, or have that really good sniping capability, and your opponent takes 1 less prize card. So it's already a really good inclusion. That's why Lugia's become so powerful. Like I mentioned before about why Miraidon's doing really well, Miraidon has a lot of HP, so it can deal with Dragapult pretty easily, and you can even have the likes of Iron Hands to try and get some easy KOs on the likes of the Dracloaks, or even the likes of Raichu, so if you build up loads of energies, to try and get a guaranteed 1-hit KO on a Dragapult. Plus, if Lugia is already going to be nearly 25% on the 20% on the meta game, Miraidon could really capitalize on this one to try and get those easy two prize Pokemon from the likes of hitting for weakness. But the rest of the metagame, we can see here, there's lots of 6, lots of 5%. We're not seeing any of the brand new archetypes except the likes of Dragapult. We're seeing some of the Golden Goes get 3%, but not Gardevoir, which I'm going to talk a little bit because Gardevoir did pretty well overall this past weekend. We've seen likes of Lost Box still do very well, and even still, Lost Tina is definitely the most popular way how to play it. So again, this Kiram, well, this is definitely going to be a threat that Lost Tina is now going to add the likes of that mana fee. Definitely the Turbo Iron Hands is still the best way to play the Future Box. Another sort of key archetype, still Blocklax is doing really, really well. But if we translate this to exactly see what exactly did the best overall, we can see here that still there wasn't that much of a big shake-up. Dragapult and Lugia were still there at the number 1 and number 2 spots. And we could just see how heavy the Dragapult really has become, how dominant it is in that top 8, even to 11 wins, which is nearly double the amount of Lugia's 2nd place finish. Again, we're seeing here there is absolutely no Charizard's in sight. I think it only got 1 win in the last 5 days, and Monday had a ton of City League. So that is again a very big difference of thing that shows how powerful Dragapult really has become, doing that 200 damage, having high amount of HP, no weakness, and that 3 damage counters is really, really crucial and kind of like swings it in the favor about why this is so powerful. Plus, you've got Dracloak with a guaranteed draw factor. Then we see the rest of this as well. Lost Tina kind of went up a little bit. Gardevoir came in there with 3 wins. Like I mentioned, it didn't do that well in the meta percentage. It was in the other section, but it did get 3 wins. We can see the results. It is a little bit lackluster overall. But honestly, I think it's really, really strong. I'm going to be talking about and having my Mastering Ultimate Guide for Gardevoir happening out in a few days' time, so definitely stick around for this one. But honestly, if you look at this top 6, we can see that nearly all of these ones have really good contention, and nearly all of them do actually appear in the top 16 list of the Champions League, which we're going to talk about right now. So if you're getting ready for any IC or any other events coming out in June, definitely keep an eye to really see exactly what has done well. And like I mentioned before, Miraidon did win. It capitalized about how powerful Lugia was. It ended up actually pairing against Lugia in top 4, so already it was guaranteed a final spot, I would say. See here, Gardevoir got second place as well. Dragapult and Lugia got top 4, then 2 top 8s of Dragapults in top 8. 1 Blocklax and 1 Miraidon. And the 16 was 3 Lugias, 1 Ancient Box, another Miraidon, a Lost Tina, a Lost Box, and a Gouging Fire. So honestly, I think some of this kind of goes with a very healthy and balanced metagame. We're not seeing the dominance of likes of Charizard and Chien-Pao, which again, I'm a little sad because they were very, very powerful, but they really gained too many stuff from the Mask of Change, or in our way, what we call it, Twilight Masquerade. We've seen a really huge increase of Lugia, 1 top 8 and 3 top 16s. And we're going to cover nearly every single one of those lists as well. So really probably dive down into exactly what makes Lugia so powerful. Also seen here, Miraidon did really well, a top 8, a top 16, a top 3rd. That's very, very powerful. That shows how strong the deck really has become. And there's definitely something which I'm definitely going to be considering about going into the new metagame. And we're going to talk exactly why it is so strong. Plus also Gardevoir, pretty much a very interesting unique effect about why this Gardevoir is doing so well. So without further ado, let's actually jump right in to the, in fact, winning list. So we can see this Miraidon is here, the winning one, and it does include 1 brand new card, Tatsugiri, which has the amazing ability, which is to look at the top few cards of your deck and guarantee put a supporter card into it. Now, the reason why I absolutely love this one, kind of guarantees to get your Arvin, guarantees your boss's order, and even the professor's research as well. That's one thing that this deck could definitely struggle a little bit. Yes, you always want to try and get the Poke Gear, but now you can have this pivot instantly. You have the emergency board as well. So you can guaranteed have this Pokemon in the active spot, get a few cards, and then just do a quick retreat. Now, another thing I love about this one is having the Iron Bundle. We have a lot of 2-prize Pokemon kind of going around there, or sometimes even 1 prize, which sometimes they just go over and shove it into the active spot. So kind of like guaranteeing a way to kind of push it away is really, really strong. Now you might go, well, it's a little bit different. It's kind of going back to the original route. We're not playing the Regieleki, we're not playing anything silly, but they are playing the likes of a heavy baton. So if one of the Iron Hands does get KO'd, you can spread around the damage, the energies around here. The Raikou and Raichu are really good secondary attacking options, and Miraidon as well is also really, really strong. There's something too absolutely absurd about this Miraidon, except we are even playing the likes of Brilliant Greninja. I say that absurd, but yes, the Radiant Greninja is really, really unique, and it's in nearly every single other Miraidon list as well. So one thing what makes this deck so powerful with the Greninja, it guarantees an extra draw factor. We aren't playing that much recovery factor, so if an energy is gone, you pretty much lose it, but you are playing 16. So there is something about it, about why this Miraidon list is really, really strong. So Greninja is a really good one. You're really optimizing into your support Pokemon, your Mews, your Tatsugiri, your Greninjas, your Zapdos to additional more damage, to guarantee your Miraidons can hit for that 230 damage, that magic number and threshold to KO the likes of an Iron Hands. So I think this is a very, very interesting deck, and I'm very kind of glad to get a win. Miraidon has had a huge success always in Japan, so that's one thing I kind of like about it, is doing that well. And Prime Catcher, again, makes so much sense. You could put so much pressure in this deck because you are playing the likes of the Max Elixirs, and even the likes of Raichu can even use its first attack as well if you go first. So that's kind of why I think Miraidon is so powerful. It's a really good Dragapult matchup because you don't have these very low HP Pokemon. Heck, even Tatsugiri has 70 HP, so they're not going to get that cheeky KO in the end. We also have a really good Lugia matchup, as well as also other matches as well. Like Charizard is very bulky, so we can't really get the easy KOs from the likes of a Radiant Charizard. No, can get KOs by Radiant Charizard, but even a regular Charizard. But now let's talk about Gardevoir. And honestly, this is so interesting because you can look at it and go, oh, it's fine, but then you go, there's a Monkey Dory, there's Darkness Synergism, there's a Hyper Aroma, there's no Arvins, there's no TM Evos, there's even a Cresselia. What on earth does a Monkey Dory do? Well, this Monkey Dory, once during your turn, if it has any Darkness Energies attached to one, you may move 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So this is actually a really cool effect to try and guarantee a way to switch around any of your damage counters around. It can make sure that you can have more energies attached to your Drifloons, your like so even your Scream Talents whilst you're moving away some damage counters, or more importantly, you're getting rid of any of the damage on your Gardevoirs or Curliers, which you're going to have to use to attach energies to retreat them. Only if it's got Darkness Energy attached to this one. Cresselia, again, is another interesting choice because they're kind of like, wasn't really played as much because you always wanted to have your damage counters on like your Drifloon and Screamtail for the past couple of months. So Cresselia sort of spreading sort of your energies around kind of became a little bit obsolete. But Hyper Aroma is actually very interesting because it does a few special things. Because it guarantees you get all of your Curliers straight away and not relying on the Team Evo. So again, we're not playing the likes of a Klefki. There's no Mimikyu to hide behind, not even a Jirachi, because you're already accepting the defeat against Dragapult. So again, this is a really interesting one, and end up obviously winning against Dragapult to get into the final spot. No Arvins, but going 4 Iridas is another really interesting choice. The Irida gets your Manaphy, gets your Greninja, so again, that's not too bad. You kind of get your draw factor and protection, but Arvin can get your tool cards. So if you're not playing the Team Evo, it's like they might think, well, why would I need this one? I could draw into my Bravery Charms, so why don't I just play the Hyper Blower that can guarantee get it from like some Irida? So there are definitely some interesting choice about why this Gardevoir list is actually doing so well. I still like the 2-1 split of the Drifloon. I still like having a Monkey Direct. I think this makes a lot of sense. It's a really interesting tech which I haven't thought about. It did really well in the likes of the Blessy deck, sorry, that did pretty well in day 1. And it's definitely a little bit of rogue tech. But honestly, it's a really interesting list, which did in fact get 2nd place. Could this be the most optimal way to play this one? Probably not, but it's a very, very fun one to talk about. Now let's talk about one of the many Dragapult one. The best one, in fact, did play the Xatu, with even the TM evolution. This is kind of very similar to where we're seeing most of the Dragapults go. One of the interesting things, quite a few of these ones, they are playing the Radiant Alakazam. Most people are playing the Radiant Charizard because it's a single price Pokemon, which could do 250 damage, obviously deal a lot more, the amount of spreading effect that Dragapult has to offer. So again, that's something which is really interesting. The enhanced summon gets rid of the likes of Mist Energy or even Legacy Energy potentially. So that's also why I really like the likes of the Rotom as one. Having the 2 copies of that one really helps you in the early setup. You do play a 4-4-3 line of Dragapult. You always try and get the TM Evo as early as possible because you want to evolve into Dragapults into turn 2, have your Xatus out to really attach the energies to this one. One thing I really like about how well positioned Dragapult has to offer is it really capitalizes on the likes of the kind of like going a bit behind. If your opponent is surprised card, they can instantly unfair stamp you and kind of like unfair stamp your opponent, and it really capitalizes on that factor. I don't too much talk about it because we have a lot of Dragapults to talk about. Similar, we have 3 more Lugia lists to talk about after this one. And this is very much how we're seeing a Lugia list kind of play out in Japan. We're seeing the Kami, which can only be played on your first turn of you can play it on your first turn and you can discard your hand and draw 5. Another way to kind of get the Archetypes in the discard pile. We're seeing here there's a more count of a 70 HP Minchino because they are scared of having the Dragapult. So it's really accepting that potentially that loss, so kind of like saying goodbye to the Call for Family, but saying hello to the 70 HP one, so it can have that surviving option. Doesn't play the Wellspring Ogerpon, but still plays the likes of Iron Hands, like with the Legacy NSC as well. Obviously, if it's attached to a Lumineon, what's a very interesting factor, which I believe is your correct thing, if you attach to a to Lumineon and shuffle the energy and itself back into the deck, Luminous energy Legacy energy hasn't actually been affected yet, as it hasn't actually been KO'd, so you can even use it again on the likes of an Iron Hands. So I think that's a really interesting factor about why this is really good inclusion, because you can kind of get rid of your Lumineon and potentially take a KO as well. The rest of this Lugia list is very much straightforward. I like the Kami, I love the Blood Moon as Luna, and I also like the splits of the Pokemon. Again, very, very straightforward Lugia list. Now let's look at some more other Dragapult lists. This is again very, very similar to one we just saw in the top 4, but it does play likes for Tatsugiri. Tatsugiri kind of guarantees you can get your supporter Pokemon, like your supporters, like your Arvins, your Ionos, or even Boss Orders as well. Does play a little bit more higher count of the Psychic Energy, a little bit of a different split, but we saw in the previous one. I also still like the now playing Lumineon, because Lumineon kind of guarantees you can get any of your supporters. You'll kind of be playing Tatsugiri plus Lumineon. You've got 2 wet Pokemon to kind of guarantee you get supported, not rely on the draw factor from a Dracloak. The rest of this deck is very, very straightforward. How we're seeing Dragapult go. Now we kind of think, is Xatu the best way to play it? Or potentially, could we see the like of the Lost Zone? And a lot of people are thinking that either the Lost Zone or the Charizard build is probably the best way, because they saw the Taurus list, which did really well in Utrecht, and kind of like capitalizing, similarizing to that. So now, One thing I really like about the Lost Zone one is because you can have the stabilize or you can spread the damage counters as well after the likes of using Dragapult. So that's one thing I really like about this. Even the Radiant Charizard, because it's such a good attacking option. Heck, because you're playing Mirage Gate, you can attack with this a lot earlier on. Your Dragapult, you can really use that only when you need it. Use your Dracloaks kind of at the early game, set up and draw all the cards you might need to have, and then you can attack with Dragapult near the end of the late game. I'm a big fan of the Lost Zone sort of version. The Cramorant is so good for that early sniping factor, the Sableye do some cleanups and damage option, but also playing a high account of Iono and Boss to really kind of get any of the key Pokemon. Heck, you can use some trapping options in the late game as well. One of the things which there isn't too many things really stand out. This one, I think this could be the best way to play Dragapult, but if we're seeing 2 Zartus and 1 Lost Zone, potentially that could go, should we be testing the Zartu build? And I'm really excited to see where this weekend is really kind of going to progress to see exactly, this week, when City Leagues, what is going to come out to be the best version to play Dragapult, and even like some Miraidon as well. We did see a huge increase of this one on Sunday's play. Now let's look at the last top 8 list for today. That in fact is Blocklax. This didn't really gain too many things except the flute, which lets you look at some top of cards of your opponent and put some basic Pokemon. It's actually pretty scary. It's even like the fan as well, because the fan is so good. You get to move around some of the energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon as soon as they get a hit. Now, obviously, there isn't that many Bravery Charms or even the likes of the Hero's Cape. So Snorlax will only really maximum have like 100 HP. Someone that either likes the Mimikyu as well, but not kind of guaranteeing getting that more HP, but moving your opponent's energies. If you think about the likes of Charizard, they're not going to play that many energies. They play like 6, so they're very tight in this one. If you're spraying around, attaching to likes of Bibarels or even likes of a Rotom, they can't really do anything about it. So that's something I really like about this. Plus, it also does play similar sort of package about where we're seeing this one. High accounts of the likes of the Temple of Sinnoh, so they're really scared of Jet Energy, and even the Chiyu as well to really help you in the mirror match, as well as also decking out your opponent. I quite like the Blocklax is still doing really well. I think it's nearly got top 16 or even top 8 nearly every single City League this Champions League this year. So that's actually a really interesting fact. Ancient Box did pretty well, did get top 16. As much as I kind of like think, oh, it's really impressive, I don't really talk about this deck too much. Did not really gain any new cards for this one. I think it can definitely a bit struggle against the likes of Dragapult because it can't hit these big one-hit KOs, and Dragapult can one-hit KO you very easily as soon as you have the energy boost, ancient booster energy capture attached to it. So I think it's an okay, good deck right now, but we did see it get top 16 in the February one. So again, it's still not too bad overall. Lost Box as well did in fact get a top 16, very similar to how we're seeing most Lost Box being played, even similar to the one from just a couple of weeks ago from the Champions League. No really guaranteed new cards, no Tatsuguris added to this one, but they are playing likes of Manaphy's, definitely slipping in a lot more into Lost Box. They are really scared of likes of Radiant Greninja plays, but definitely that maybe sometimes they might want to even add a 1/1 Rapska to protect them against the likes of some of the Dragapults instead. But again, that's an end of stage 1, and that's not exactly how Lost Box plays by the rules. The rest of the Pokemon very similar, not playing Roaring Moon, so again, that's a little bit of an interesting factor, but they do play 2 copies of Sableye, really capitalizing on kind of spraying that damage out, or if they can't get the guaranteed one-hit KO, having like Raikou and their Bloody Ice Luna to really help that setup. Unbundle, I really like in Lost Box definitely now. I think it's a really good inclusion, and the rest of it is still very much straightforward. Now let's look at the next 3 Lugia lists that got top 16. This one here is definitely where we're seeing a lot of Lugia lists kind of like settle on. They are playing more of the 70 HP Minccino. They're playing the Wellspring Ogerpon to kind of get guaranteed that sort of switch, that sniping effect. And even having 1 copy of Lightning Energy, so you can kind of attack with Iron Hands other sort of ways if the Legacy Energy gets attached to an Ogerpon and gets KO'd. So again, Ogerpon and Lumineon have ways to shuffle energies back in, having that energy protection, as well as also kind of like reusing like so that a Legacy Energy is really strong. 4 Cups of Kami, they're really prioritizing that. Lugia can get guaranteed to play a supporter turn 1. So again, I really like this top 16 list. This one here is a little bit different, playing likes of Snorlax, but also having the likes of a Weirdeer, but no Iron Hands. But playing a lot less of the Kami, only 1, and 1 Jamming Tower. I wouldn't say this is as strong as the previous 2. I would say that definitely has a lot more in the edge, in the mirror match, or even in general, lots of other ways. I think Iron Hands is that good, you should be playing this one. And kind of having the Weirdeer, I think is a little bit obsolete at times, because you're not going to energy accelerate too much in this one, and sometimes all your energies might leave turn after turn after turn. And last one as well here is a little bit more of a straightforward list. Again, does play that weird idea, like I'm not exactly too big fan of it, but doesn't play the likes of Akami. So again, I would say that the first two lists we saw were definitely my more preferred version of how Lugia should be played. The other ones are definitely having a little bit more different. We are noticing they are switching to the 70 HP Minchinos to really protect them from the likes of Dragapult. And we're seeing Legacy Energy nearly every single one. So bye-bye Master Balls, we're now adding back Legacy Energy because it is just that good. And the last deck I want to talk about is this Miraidon top 16 list. Again, very similar to the winning list as well. Does play 2 copies of Iron Hands instead of the classic one, which we saw, 2 copies of Iron Hands and 2 Miraidon, but still plays the likes of that Radiant Greninja and Iron Bundle to really help that draw factor, as well as also kind of like gusting effect. If your opponent promotes a 1-prize Pokemon or a very heavy HP 2-prize Pokemon, kind of like switching it out for a much more easier target is much better. Rest of it as well, not playing too many new cards, still playing a heavy baton. Believe it is even an EXP share behind that as well. But the rest of it as well is a very straightforward and top 16 Miraidon list with a lot of energy. So how exactly is this going to continue Miraidon's success? I think we are going to see it continue. We saw it do super, super well, getting multiple it's got a top 8, a top 16, and even a winning list as well, because they really capitalized about seeing, they looked at the meta and went, okay, if Dragapult is doing pretty well and we can have a decent matchup against this one because Lugia is also so good, Miraidon just fits perfectly, and it's such a nice thing. The meta is still fresh, it's still new, so I think Miraidon's success will definitely continue. Is Dragapult still a threat? Again, we could say this again, like when Charizard was at the first sort of it started the format, it only got a top 8, top 4, and then it followed up with the latest Champions League a few weeks ago. We're getting 3 of the top 4 positions. So it's very still early doors for Dragapult. We're still understanding what is the best way to play it. Decks might kind of like capitalize and go back to the likes of the Xatu build, but I'm hearing lots of chatter for us sort of side. People are really loving the Charizard one, but that didn't perform as well. I still think we're very early doors for Dragapult, and the success will definitely continue because it did get 3 top 8 places. And what is the best ace spec for Gardevoir? Everyone thought it could be unfair stamp, but now we are seeing, or Hero's Cape in the early sort of meta game, now we're seeing the Hyper Aroma. Could this in fact be the best way of how Gardevoir should play? Are we going a bit more aggressively play? But then also now we're not playing any rare candies or team evos to guarantee a Gardevoir EX as early as turn 2. So it's definitely something to be really considerate about. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and please, if you have, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below what deck were you surprised did really well in the Champions League. Definitely Miraidon is going to be up there as a big one, but it's won multiple events in Japan and they absolutely love this deck, so it doesn't make any surprise about why it's doing so well. So my name is TCG. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys soon. Bye for now.